Before we talk about real estate, we want to start with real life because that's where everything actually begins. We're moms, wives, friends, business owners, and women navigating busy seasons just like everyone else. And this first half is exactly that. It's a catch up, a check in, and a chance to get to know us as people before professionals. Before we talk about real estate, we want to talk about real life. My name is Ashley.
I'm Avery.
I'm Riley. I'm Amanda.
And we are the 417 Homegirls. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Miss Avery?
I am good. It's been a while since we've been here.
It has been.
It's been a few weeks.
Yeah, welcome back to the 417 Homegirls podcast. This is Ashley, and I'm here with Avery, and we're here today to chat through a very fun topic with you all about buyers walking away. Because we were seeing that a lot lately in the market here in the 417. It is July 14th, and it's just kind of what's happening. But before we dive in, we're going to do a little catch up. So how's life, Avery?
Life's been fun. We had our announcement pictures, our maternity announcement pictures last night, and that was fun. And Barrett did so good, pictures with the toddler and it was sunset pictures. So you know
Beautiful.
how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But they can be kind of hectic when you're trying to get pictures of you and your husband or by yourself or what, your toddler's running around being crazy, but it went really good. And
Good.
so, yeah. And real estate's been good. I've had a few go under contract. We had a big ordeal with a title company recently that taught me a lot. It taught me a lot. I will say that, at least I learned something from it. So that's what I'm going to take away from it. Instead of taking away the negative, I learned something. So how have you been? You got back from vacation recently.
Yes. So we went to Destin. We tried Destin this year. We've never been there. We usually do Orange Beach or Panama City. I actually really like Panama. Probably the best. And then we tried Destin. And this time we went in a peak season. We usually go in off peak, but now that he's in school, we need to kind of work around that. So in the summer, it was busy. It was on July 4th, which we saw the fireworks on the beach. That was absolutely perfect.
So cool.
But they shot them off every night until, wee hours. And there should be some ordinance, but I guess there's not. So it was busy. We're staying in Miramar Beach, which is kind of further down. So we heard it was a little quieter, but it was definitely not. So just a busier place. I think the beach was beautiful. Probably our most favorite beach. It was white, crisp sand.
We love Destin.
Yeah,
It's gorgeous.
The water was beautiful. It just, it was fun, but my husband got sick, and then I don't know if you can kind of tell in my voice, but now that I've got this head cold going and Liam's got it and we're all just recouping.
Yeah.
So, but it was fun to get away and relax. Real estate's been good. Had a lot of closings, got a lot of families in some houses. So that's fun, and sold some houses. Yeah. So got all that cleared up. But along the way, there were some buyers that backed out of some contracts of some of my listings. So we want to dive into that because it is a thing. It's a real thing. And we're just seeing it a lot more lately. And what does that necessarily mean? What happens when buyers back out? What happens to sellers? What happens to the buyers? And what happens with the contract? So a lot to dive into today. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it can be heartbreaking for sellers and stressful for buyers, but there's also a lot of confusion about what actually happens. Can buyers just walk away? Do they lose their earnest money? Mm-hmm. Does the seller have any rights? So we're going to break it all down today.
Okay. So let's talk about the situations in which buyers can actually terminate the contract or buyers can, quote, walk away, because there are, some cases where it's completely okay. And then there's some where it's like, well, you are going to lose a lot if you walk away. But other cases, you're totally fine to walk away. So I think the biggest part, and, it's probably the biggest section of buying a home is the inspection period. So that is a time in which buyers can walk away. And that is a really large portion, right there at the beginning. You have your inspection, you're going through everything. That's a really big thing. When do you see buyers walking away the most in inspections? What do you see? What comes up and buyers walk away? You're like, oh, they're probably going to walk away once this happens.
It kind of depends on the contract, because if they, if they check the box on limitations, they can't walk away right away. They have to at least give the sellers an opportunity to fix something. And then if the sellers say no, then they can walk away. But they could say yes and fix everything, and then they still can't walk away. So it kind of depends on the contract. But the biggest thing I think for buyers recently in my situations, there haven't been, has had nothing to do with the inspection.
Really?
Yeah. We actually had one, and we were under contract twice. Great house, popular. I mean, multiple offers every time it's been on the market. And the first one, we extended it. Then we had that hailstorm. I think we talked about that before. And then they needed their money. They just backed out. Like, they literally was like, we can't close because we need our money that we were going to use for our down payment to fix 5 cars because we didn't have insurance. And my poor sellers have been off the market for 45 days at this point. And just awful. And so we go back on, and then they get it. And so we never got an inspection. I mean, we never got an inspection because they waived their inspection rights. So the second one, same thing. They had an inspection, never gave it to us, and then they just walked away. And they didn't really give us a reason. I think they got cold feet because they didn't even give us the chance to fix anything, even though they were supposed to. And they were like, oh, well, we're going to let you have the earnest money. It's like, well, no, we get to have the earnest money because you're walking away.
Yeah, you're leaving.
So legally, you have to give that to us. But so it really hasn't been from the inspection. But sometimes I have seen in the past inspections just come up. And that's why it's important as a buyer's agent to prep your buyers that the inspection is going to be very long, as it should be for the most part. Most inspectors do a very thorough job. And we've talked about this previously, but like, there's going to be things on there that are things that you just want to watch for, things that are very major. Those are the things you really want to focus on. You're not most likely you're not buying a brand new house. So there are going to be things on an inspection. But sometimes buyers just see it's 70 pages. My house is going to fall down. I'm out. I'm scared. I got cold feet. And we're going to kind of talk about some things that buyers need to be aware of so that you don't feel that way. You're not rushing into it. So, but usually I'll see it on an inspection. It's just, they just see a lot and then they panic and maybe the buyer's agent didn't prep them. And so now they're get cold feet and then they run. And it's just like, there's things we can fix. What is it? Let's fix it. Let's work through it. But at that point they're already done. So they don't give us the chance. Just kind of.
What can you do? I did have a mutual release earlier this year, like really early on in the year. And, that was a mutual release is the buyers walking away, but they gave the sellers every right to fix the problems. But the problems were not, I don't think, if the sellers did know, then, that's kind of fishy, but that's a different story. But, the inspection came back and showed that there was like, some quotes were giving us like $30,000 worth of repairs that needed to be done.
Now that's understandable.
Yeah, like structural. I'm not just talking like, oh, the floors were a little wonky. Like repairs had been made, but they were really, really, really poor DIY repairs, structural DIY repairs, which is just beyond me why anybody would ever consider doing that or like think that they have the know-how to do that, because clearly they didn't. And we gave the sellers so many different options, and usually it's just a big. Obviously, we know the inspection period is a big negotiation period. Like you're deciding what to do, what not to do, what do you want to ask for, and it's a lot of back and forth between the buyer's agent and the seller's agent or the listing agent. And so, we just had to walk away because the things that were really, my buyers had really gotten down to only what was important to them. And they had picked like 2, maybe 3 things that were important. But those 2, maybe 3 things totaled up to like more than like $17,000. So they didn't pick all like the little nitpicky things, but then they were like, okay, so if you're not going to do this one big thing, we're going to fill it with 5 more nitpicky things in its place. And they still were, so.
So question.
Yeah.
Is that house still on the market?
It is not. It actually, it went back on the market like 3 days after the mutual release. I thought it would go back like the next day, but like 3 days after the mutual release, it went back on the market. And within, I want to say within less than a week, it was back under contract. It had only been on the market for like 4 or 5 days before.
Has it closed?
Yeah, it's done. This was months ago. So that is another situation. And like, I wish I could pull up the disclosures and see if they changed some stuff. I just hope, I was talking to my buyers because when it had gone, they kept asking me, has the house gone under contract? Like we can't, has it closed, whatever. And I'm like, well, it went under contract. And then once we had closed, that house had closed around the same time because it took my buyers a little bit to find another house. And once that house closed, I was like, it closed. And we were all just sitting there like, man, I really hope the buyers had an inspection.
So
I
this
really
is
hope.
a huge public service announcement. But realtors, if a house has fallen through, call the previous agent and get the lowdown. You are doing your due diligence for your clients. You need to know both sides of the story.
Yeah.
If somebody would have called you and asked, hey, what's going on? And you would have said this, you probably might have disclosed something that maybe was not disclosed to them. And so anyway, PSA,
you mean like
realtors.
I went under contract, we fell out, the next buying agent who comes in, call me as a previous buying agent. That's really smart.
1,000%.
That's really smart. I've never had a situation like that, but that's smart.
That other agent should have yes, talk to the listing agent. Why did it fall through? Get their side. Okay. Then contact the other agent. There's no law against that.
Right.
Contact the other agent. Hey, what's your side? What happened with that contract? You are doing your due diligence for your clients and making sure they are well aware. So there's a tip for y'all agents out there. Or if you have an agent and you know that it's fallen through, you ask that agent to reach out to the previous buyer's agent and say, why did that fall through on your side? What is your side of the story?
That's smart. I never thought about
details.
that.
Yeah. Definitely something to do. Okay. So definitely inspections are one of the big reasons why contracts can fall apart. And, you know, I always encourage buyers to have an inspection. I always tell sellers, buyers have the right. They always have a right to an inspection, and they most likely will, and they should have an inspection on your home. That's why sometimes even talking to sellers, if they want to have a pre-inspection, so they know exactly going into it what they have. It's dependent on the circumstance, but sometimes they can, but sometimes they're like, I'm not worried about an inspection, so yeah, don't waste your money on it. And then when the buyers do, then let's see what happens. But we can't control the other side. That's the whole point with some of these conversations with our clients is we cannot control the other side, because sometimes clients will say, well, what do you think? What do you think? And I want to have a crystal ball and tell you that it's going to go smoothly and these buyers are going to be great. But I just can't. I could fully believe, and that happened with one of my houses recently. I fully believe that, the agent was so convincing. They really want that. Because this was multiple offers. So they were deciding which buyers, and I'm like, they really want it. Their financing looks fantastic. This is the situation. I feel like it's really going to be a strong one. And they just walked. No reason.
You never know.
So you just never know. But it always works out.
Yeah.
It always works out. It stinks in the middle of it. And you always wonder, why am I doing this? But it does always work out. So...
And as a realtor, I feel like our point of view is different than those of the buyers, obviously, because we've talked about this a lot. We protect our buyers. Like that's buyers and sellers. We're, especially as a buyer's agent, you have taught me from the beginning as a team lead, don't come to your buyers with a problem unless it's completely necessary. Don't come to your buyers with a problem until you have a solution and say, here's what the problem is, but I've already fixed it. Or here's what our solution is. And so we do a lot of the protecting. So it circulates our mind. Oh, this went wrong. This went wrong. This went bad. This was a rough transaction. But then at the end of the buyers are like, thank you so much. You've been great. This whole transaction has been so smooth. And I'm like, oh, wait, really? I was the one freaking out. You guys have no idea. So
that's my job.
Yes. Yeah. That's a hard balance.
It is a hard balance. Yes, it is. So the next piece of this that can fall apart, so we have inspections, and the next one would just be financing. So those are the two major parts in a contract that the negotiations happens where a buyer can walk away or fall out of contract would be financing. So job changes, credit, a buyer opens a new credit line, they make a large purchase, their debt to income changes, there's lender requirements that are needed and they can't, fulfill that. So what do we always tell buyers, Avery?
Don't do anything differently than what you were doing before. Don't go buy anything brand new. Like, don't put anything on, brand new. Don't buy anything huge. Don't put it on a credit card. Don't buy a new car. Don't go spend thousands of dollars on a credit card, and listen to your lender.
Yeah.
When they tell you, if you're using a lender,
and your agent.
Credit, you're as an agent, I will tell you the same thing, but really listen to the both of us when we tell you that, because the last thing you want is to be a week out from closing and your lender's like, wait, I just figured out that you spent $5,000 on furniture, at Ashley Furniture, and now you can't purchase your house over furniture that you were going to put in this new house. So just wait and
even
listen.
if you think it's a good thing. Like I might have mentioned this before, but and it wasn't my clients, but some previous agent had a client. They sold their truck, and for cash, they took the cash, put it in the bank. It was like $20,000 or something. They thought, this is great. I have extra money. This is a good thing. Well, it got flagged. Where did this money come from? They couldn't track it. So I would say anything out of the norm that you don't do on a weekly basis, you need to ask permission.
If you're going to sell your truck
your
and there's no
permission.
loan associated with your truck, if your truck is completely paid off or a vehicle is completely paid off and you're going to go and sell it, keep the cash. Just hold it until closing.
Hold on to
I know
it.
that's
Don't
probably something
stick it
that
in the bank.
somebody at a bank would tell you not to do, but seriously, just hold on. Just wait. You don't want to mess
stuff.
Yeah, you don't want to mess up buying a house. Over something that you thought was a good thing. Just always talk to your lender, always talk to your agent. If something big's going to happen, whether it's a purchase or, the selling and you're getting a lot of cash in or a gift funds of cash or something, talk to your lender and talk to your agent and say, is there something I should accept? And, how should I go about navigating that? Because you don't want to lose your house.
Go to Old Navy and they're like, oh, but you already approved for a credit card and it'll save you
today.
It'll save you $50 on your purchase. And it's so tempting to say, oh yeah, go ahead, give it to me. But no, because right there, it'll hit your credit.
Ding, ding,
now
ding.
you have a new
A new ding.
a new ding. All right. And now we're going to move into everyone's favorite topic, earnest money. Yeah. And I've had some change of heart on earnest money
Have
lately.
you?
Yeah, I have.
I'm interested to hear this.
Yeah. So a lot of people think like, sellers automatically think if buyers have earnest money, it's mine no matter what. So we're going to kind of talk really a little bit more about earnest money here because there's a lot of factors to it and it kind of depends on what the contract says. That's why it's important to have a realtor to understand your contract and to understand and explain it to you. So, it automatically gets refunded. It just goes straight back to my bank. It all just depends on why the contract ended. So that's the biggest thing. And so talking to your agent about, and I always go through scenarios, this could happen. This means this is why you would get your earnest money back. This is where you wouldn't get your earnest money back. So what do you think the buyers misunderstand most about earnest money? So let's talk about buyer's side first.
I think they misunderstand the leverage it has to a seller. And I think that depends. If you're doing a for sale by owner and you have a seller that maybe isn't knowledgeable about earnest money, they might, they might see it as a good leverage point. And it might have been, I wasn't an agent during COVID, so it might have been different during COVID. But I think that as a buyer, they think this will give me this will give me a leg up. Like this will be good. Yeah. But if you have a listing agent who is knowledgeable and can explain to their clients or just clients who are aware, if the contract's going to go through, that seller's not going to get that money. So it doesn't really, in some cases it does look better just to offer that, that amount more or offer just a little bit more on the contract price rather than give them money. Yeah. So I think that is, at least from what I see, that's the biggest misconception is like buyers thinking that, I know this house has only been on the market for 2 days. And I've been talking to the listing agent and they're like, hey, we've had a bunch of showings and I think we're going to have an offer put in. And so my buyers are like, okay, well, we want to put in an offer too. How much earnest money should we put? Is it important? And obviously we can only give them so much guidance on that, but I think that they think it gives them more leverage than it actually does in most cases.
Yeah. So I do think that it's important. And at first it's like, well, this is kind of what we're seeing in our market because, we'll see some earnest money. Sometimes people think, is it 1% of the list price, 3% of the list price, 1% of the loan? Like how much earnest money should we do? And, before it's like, it's just skin in the game, in my opinion. And so I do think earnest money is very important. Before it was like, it depends. Like if the buyers have zero money and they need their closing costs paid, they don't have any extra funds to put earnest money down. So just kind of situational, but I do think that it is important. And I do highly think that it needs to be in a contract. If there are multiple offers, it needs to be there. It needs to be there because that situation where the buyers had the hailstorm, we had negotiated, they wanted a little extra days. This was before the hailstorm. They had no earnest money down. They needed to extend it a little bit. So we were like, okay, well then we want to ask for, I don't know, $2,000 earnest money. We want it paid by Tuesday.
So you did an amendment to the contract?
We did an amendment, to extend it. We were going to extend it a little bit more to help them work on their credit and then to put down earnest money. And they said, okay, yep, they signed it, agreed. And then that was like a Friday. Hailstorm happened on the weekend. Come Monday, it's not delivered. Tuesday, they're walking away and they haven't delivered it. And they got out.
I don't know if it was you that suggested that or your sellers, but good job as you as the listing agent to suggest that to your sellers because, obviously hindsight's 2020. You didn't know that it was going to happen in the way it did or else, but still you protected your sellers. And
well, not really.
In, more than just not having the earnest money there altogether. You did give them something.
And lesson learned. We should have pushed back on the earnest money in the very beginning when we were negotiating the contract. And from here on out, I will. You only know what you know and learn what you learn. And that's basically like, it is important to get it, I believe, in the beginning, have it deposited to the title company within those 5 days. So it is there. And then the mutual release, I know you mentioned that earlier, and some people listening may not have any idea what that means. A mutual release just means like you are both mutually releasing to get out of the contract. So if something falls through, you have to sign this document. Both parties have to sign it, and it will tell you where the earnest money is going, whether it's going back to the seller, back to the buyer, how it's being paid out, check, wire, whatever. And then it takes a little bit for it to process and then get returned to either party. So
something I was going to say about the earnest money too, I think your average house that you sell or, that you're the listing agent or buying agent of is a lot different than the average price that I have. So I think that's another factor too. If you have, lower houses where you have first time home buyers that are walking in and asking for seller concessions, and earnest money doesn't play, a role in that situation, or not as big of a role. But in your cases, in most of the houses that you deal with, I could definitely see how earnest money, and that's why my perspective was pretty different from Ashley's on how important earnest money is, because our buyer pool is, different. I have a lot of first time home buyers, and I've dealt mostly with first time home buyers, and you have really established buyers who are in like their forever home or their retirement home, and, they have a lot of equity, and maybe they're cash or, whatever, and don't need closing costs. So I think that's also a big difference too. And that's a key player. What kind of house are you buying? What's price? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So now let's kind of flip it to the seller's perspective. So like, what happens to a seller? So a buyer chooses to walk away. It's terrible. It's devastating. The emotional roller coaster that I see it happen to sellers is devastating. And I feel it right along with them. I think I feel a little bit too much for my clients sometimes, especially when they're family or friends of mine and we're close. That is really hard on me as well. And I feel terrible. I don't know why, but sometimes I take the blame, even though it's really not my fault, but I feel it just as much as they do. So yes, it can be an emotional roller coaster for them. They've packed, they're getting ready to move, they're planning the move, the momentum, they're losing the momentum. Should we just back out? Should we not? What should we do? Should we go back active? What does this look like? Is this going to hurt our sale, for the future? But I mean, you just have to, again, we play very many roles as a real estate agent. And at this point, it's just like you have to coach them through and therapy through that it's going to be okay. We're going to get it back on the market. And again, we don't have a crystal ball, but we're just going to stay positive that it's meant to be for the right buyer. It takes one buyer. I say that all the time. It just takes one, and they're going to love it. Someone's going to come in and love it, and it's all going to work out. It's all going to end happily. We will sit happily at the closing table. Yes. I really feel that. Yeah. So you just have to encourage sellers, don't panic. The next offer may be better. It may have better terms. It may not get you more money, but the terms may be better. It may be smoother. Sometimes it's like, should I wait out to get more money, or is that going to be a difficult contract? Is it going to be so stressful? Is that even going to be worth it? Whether it is to take a little bit less and make it smooth and let's close, but you don't know. No, you don't know.
Hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah. And we've seen second and third buyers come in. So that house, it was the third time's a charm. Third buyers came the right buyers, and they came in, it closed, everything was fine. So.
Yeah. And your sellers were happy sitting at the closing table.
They were like, we're not having 2 mortgages anymore. So
yeah, I mean, I'd be happy too, I guess. Yeah.
And if you're listening, you guys, my clients, I love you to pieces. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. See, I still feel it. Like it's still,
it's
sorry. Like a memory that's etched
as if
in
you
there.
were the buyer that backed out.
I felt terrible. And yeah, so moving on. It can be emotional.
I think some realtors are able to step back emotionally, but I know everybody on our team, especially, me and you, like all of us, honestly, we all share the same thing. We are so invested in our clients, and we play, there are some points in which we have to step back and, really look at the facts and look at the numbers, but we're there to be your guide. And we spend so much time with you and talking to you over the course of, 30, 45, 60 days. And even longer if you're with a buyer who's like looking at multiple houses. We're so emotionally invested in our clients. And I think it's really important to be emotionally invested so you can understand their point of view, and you then end up doing what's best for them in the end. So,
and you do have to step back and know professionally when not to cloud your judgment of, where should I be emotional and when should I not be, and I mean, yes,
happy for
the
them,
other
celebrate.
agent might get the wrath of that, on my end, because I'm just so frustrated. And I know it's not necessarily their fault. Sometimes it's just the buyer's just making their decision. And so, I get it. It's just no fun. It's probably it is the worst part of the job is the mutual releases. So, and just talking more about earnest money. So I feel like kind of wrapping that part up, but I do feel like it's important. And I feel like, talk to your agent, whether you're a buyer or seller, about what, and it shows a strong offer. If you're a buyer, if you could put down something that shows you have skin in the game, that you aren't just going to walk away. Now, can you walk away outside of those negotiation periods? Yes, I've seen it. And like that one where they just walked away because of the hailstorm. Now, what's the repercussions? You can get sued. Are the sellers going to sue for $2,000 of earnest money? I mean, no, and a lot of people don't. But should they? In my mind, I'm like, yes, because I'm so tired of people getting away with just thinking they could walk away from something so important and leave the other clients just like stranded. So the
buyers don't have emotional ties to the house, but the sellers do.
No, they don't.
they've been through it all.
Yeah,
So
some buyers really get invested and then maybe it falls out because of financing and then they're just devastated because it was their dream home. I've seen that too. And that's also devastating and it's heartbreaking for both sides. But you just do your best. I mean, you do your best to do your job like any job. You really do your best to educate and to be there and just work through it. You got to work through it. So I do think earnest money is important. I would encourage it if you're a buyer, and as a seller, I would encourage it to look at it in the contract and get it deposited. So, and then just talk to your agent on what are the scenarios, because there's so many scenarios that could happen to where you get the earnest money. But essentially, it's those two parts, inspections and the financing part, which is the appraisal. Those are two parts of the contract that you negotiate through, and that if you're, I always say the ball's in your court. If you bounce the ball to their court and you negotiate back, and then they say no, then they can keep the earnest money as far as the buyers go. But if they just walk away one day outside of those negotiation periods, the buyers, and they're just like, oh, peace out. We have a hailstorm. We can't get the house anymore. We're out. But their financing doesn't fall through, then the sellers keep their earnest money.
right.
And if, that's kind of it. So
as we kind of wrap this up, we're going to talk about how buyers avoid getting in the situation of having to walk away in the first place. And I know we've talked about everything so far, a situation in which buyers can walk away. But now we're going to kind of shift and, talk about how can they avoid having to walk away in the first place. And the biggest thing I think is going to revolve around financing, making sure they're fully approved, thinking about your budget and not just, I'm fully approved for $350,000. Well, but your monthly payment is going to be double what it is right now. And you're not comfortable with that. Figure out what your monthly payment is, talk to your lender, figure out what you're comfortable with, factor in insurance and taxes and, everything that goes into, home maintenance. And, do you have a septic? Do you have a well? Do you have to pay for the maintenance on that? And another thing is just to really think over your offer. And when you're writing an offer, really be there with your agent and ask the questions. I always tell my buyers, please do not have questions that are just still sitting there lingering. Please ask me any questions you have because I want you to know what you're walking into and what you're actually offering. And I know it's hard because sometimes you have to rush into an offer not rush into it, but rush writing it.
Yeah.
And things sometimes don't get like fully thought through as if they're, as if there weren't any offers on the table. So sometimes you do have to kind of like rush writing an offer, but it's just important to ask all of those questions.
I recently had one where it said that it had an HOA and that the trash was included and for $100 a year. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So they were excited. They're like, this is perfect. This is, they didn't want an HOA, but then they saw, oh, well, it covers trash and it's only $100 a year sold. Like that pays for the trash itself, if not more. So we went ahead and, I reached out to the agent. They wanted to write an offer. I said, but they're like, well, it says it on there. We need to make sure that, and I said, well, let's wait. Let's get an answer first so that there's no surprises. Let's not write an offer, jump into it, and then them come back and say, oh, just kidding. The HOA is not going to cover, trash. And now you're disappointed. Now you're upset. Now we have negative feelings. Like, let's get all the answers up front. Let's do all our due diligence first. And sometimes you're right. Like, and they had put a deposit down because it's a new build. So they've held it for a little bit. So it's not like someone's going to come in and take it from them. So I get that if there's a rush to put in an offer because there's going to be multiple offers. Yeah. But it's hard and it's situational, but you just want to make sure you have an agent that's answering all the questions and that you get all the knowledge that you can up front so that you're not backing out come inspection time because you found out the HOA doesn't cover something that you thought it did. So,
ask the questions.
Yeah,
ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask any questions, especially as a first-time home buyer. Do not be. As any home buyer, do not be afraid.
And the contract is lengthy, and that's our job to go through and really tell you the points that matter to you. And sometimes it frustrates me sometimes when clients are constantly like going back and like, but I need this to be in there. It's almost like they don't trust me, and it's like, I just wish that you're hiring me to trust me to do the best for you and that I have your best interest in heart. I am not. And I get it. Some people don't know me, I get it, but it's just like, I'm not here to
steal your money
and make you I'm not here for the paycheck, but I get it. Some people are. And so I get it, but it's just really as an agent to just be really forthcoming with everything and like all the things. And sometimes clients glaze over and they're like, this is so much information, and it is. So it's important to really tell them the key points of the contract. And like she said, ask questions because sometimes people are like, what's earnest money again? Awesome. I know we've
Let me
gone over
answer
it 3
it.
times
Yeah.
and it's in your buyer packet, but let's go over it again.
And
Let's
if you're
go over
watching
scenarios.
this podcast and you're still like, I'm so confused. What is
Yeah.
earnest money? Is this message us and ask
Yeah.
us? We are happy to answer questions. And I mean that for my clients, people who are not clients. If you have heard a word 1,000 times, we do it every day, so it's easy for us to understand. And obviously, like, we went through schooling for it, and we're surrounded by it every day, so we know the answers to those questions. But it's okay if you don't, and that's what we're here for. So,
So real estate isn't always smooth, and sometimes contracts don't make it to the closing table. So
yeah, the important thing is that you understand your contract and you have professionals who are backing you, like your agent, who are helping you to navigate situations that are tricky and to answer those questions that you do have, and to make sure you do fully understand the contract, because there's just so much information that goes into it.
yeah, and like Avery said, if you have any questions about any of this, or if you've even been thinking about buying or selling and you have more questions and you're, what does this look like? Let's chat. So we'd love to help you.
We have some really exciting news that we haven't talked about yet. If you follow us on social medias, you have seen it. But 417 Home Collective is now with Keller Williams Local, and we are so excited. We have our cute little office set up. Amanda's space is just maxed out,
Pinterest.
beautiful. It literally looks like a Pinterest office. It is insane. But yeah,
She will be our stager one day.
Yeah, she will. She's a crazy good decorator. But we are so excited to be with Keller Williams, and our team is already thriving so much, and I can just see
The growth.
us excelling. Yeah.
Same. I'm super excited. So same us, but we're going to be better agents for it.
Yes, we will. More training, more people around us to help. So
That's right.
Yeah.
We're excited. So thank you for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
See ya.